hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Spotlight, which is brought to you by Georgetown Branch number 5520, where we are here to educate, motivate, and activate. Today, we have a couple of really good topics. We have our special guest. Well, really, it's part of the crew. We have the president, Mr. Neil, and Deontay Winchester. Please make sure that you like and share this video with everybody on your page so that they get this information as well. But in the meantime, stay tuned.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to put a hand of protection.
All right, we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into it. Let's bring on our president, Mr. Marvin Neal.
How you doing? Good evening, Ebony. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Doing great. Hey, we coming into the greatest day of the year, Mother's Day.
Man, Mother's Day is pretty special, isn't it?
It's so special. So special.
And to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day is pretty special for me. It's special in that I get to recognize my mom, but I also get to kind of sit back and reflect about my grandmother and my great grandmothers and the role and impact that they played into my life. So for that, I have them to thank.
You know, there is so much goes with Mother's Day. You know, Mother's Day set the tone for humanity. I don't think we recognize that a lot of times, you know.
Right.
Jesus came from a mother. The greatest man that walked earth was him. So when you could deliver someone like him, and then he turns around and delivers you, how special is that?
Wow.
You know, there's nothing like a mother. You know, and I went to the gravesite today of my mother and my grandmother, and I just put some roses and stuff in the vase and stuff at the grave. You know, and
yes, sir.
It reminds you to reflect back on from whence you came. You know how they nurtured you to be who you are today and stuff. You know, so and mothers remind their children that they are somebody all the time, and everybody else failed them from a mental health perspective, schools, police. Mothers always come through. And I know you just left Germany. This is the second trip to Germany within a year, and your daughter was there. So it tells me that you have not lost focus. And we can never lose focus. My mother nurturing me up until her death in 2017.
Wow.
So, you know, so
you had a great mother.
Oh God, man!
I used to tear that food up.
I can't talk about her enough. I can't think about her enough, and just the respect that I've had for her. I hear some of the things that people say in front of their mother. I've never stepped out of order in front of my mother. Never. Right. When I did, I checked myself.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my adult life with children, I check myself, and that's something we have to really go back to, because mothers are the God's gift to humanity. You know, because they do everything, Ebony, and you know that.
Yes.
I see what Jackie Williams and those that's just in the organization and outside of the organization. This is not about the NAACP. This is just about the NAACP sending a message on Mother's Day that mothers is the greatest gift to humanity. And we do not need to lose focus on that.
Yes.
When we do, we have lost everything, because they stand when everybody else falls away. Mothers are still standing there. Good, bad, indifferent, they're still standing there. So,
amen.
And I just want to say happy Mother's Day to you, because you are a special mother. And I know that. I know that before you even became a mother, you were a special person. You know, so and that means a lot.
Thank you,
That's why I
Mr.
can always talk about you and say what I need to say honestly, because that's what it means to me. And that's what you mean to me. And my mother and my wife, God have mercy, my children, because they gave me grandchildren, it makes them so special again. And we have to think about all these things as we address, you know, uh, situations. It always goes back to the mother, you know.
Right. Yes, sir. And I want to also, Mr. Neal, before we have our first vice president, Mr. Deontay Winchester, he's also going to come on and share some words with us as well in regards to Mother's Day. I want to thank my little sister and folks like Marilyn Hemingway, who did not birth any children, but you know what? These ladies are nurturers um, in everything that they do. And I just want to tell ladies like that, thank you.
But Abby, can you say thank you enough?
You can't. It's no way in this world you could.
Every time I think about just women, period, you know, and I was speaking to someone today at Ace Hardware, and they were telling me about, and I was looking at Ukraine and what mothers are going through there, standing strong in the heat of battle,
Jesus.
can't get out, but clinching to their children, not running away from them, running to them in all of the things that's going on right now. You know, it makes them even more special. It reminds me of from whence we have came and mothers and what they have went through, the birth of children, and nurturing other race. I mean, from they raised them. And I always tell people there's a little black in everybody because mothers, black women gave their body to white children.
Speak, Mr. Neal.
And I've never lost sight of that. Every time I think about how
Speak.
how we talk about black women is a part of everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. I don't care how you look at it. And that will never change because from the beginning of time, from whence we came, out of the mouths of Bethlehem, which is no more than Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, we have always been that first life that gave life and nurtured life. And we are nurturers. And by life and gift that God had gave black women, we are nurturers of the earth. Black women is nurturers of the earth. That's why they were so humble when they were feeding the masters. Still humble today. Today, still humble. We hear them every day as complaints come in with the NAACP for their children in schools. I don't have calls from fathers. I have calls from mothers. And Deontay could tell you that. Mothers call me and say, I need help with my child because I raised her a certain way and I can't say what she's not doing, but I know one thing. I didn't raise her that way. And that's what makes them so special again.
Yes, sir. So true. You said a whole mouthful. Welcome to the show. Our first vice president, Mr. Deontay Winchester.
Thank you so much, Abby. Well, happy Mother's Day to you, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially my mother, Patricia, because Lord knows I put her through.
I know you
We know.
already know.
But let me tell you something, man. That woman never gave up on me. No matter what they said about me, she would always say, "No, not my baby. He gonna be something." And she ain't lied yet.
That's right.
Also,
Yeah, you are something.
also to my wife, who, and when we talk about mothers, we have to recognize the strength, because let me tell you something. When they give birth, they are so close to death. And especially in my case, my wife went through this situation where she had so much fluid on her that it was dangerous. And I want to say she lost about 80 pounds of fluid in one day. That's how bad it was. So when we talk about Mother's Day, let's just sit back and appreciate these women, these strong women who gave us life to the risk of their own health and possibly dying during that process.
Yeah.
So
That's so
thank
true.
all of you. We love you. We appreciate you. It's y'all's day.
Thank you very much, Deontay. That's something that my grandmother, who is passed away now, Lillian Hughes, she would always say, when a woman is giving birth, you have one foot on earth and one foot in the grave.
That's
And,
real.
and it's real, and it scared me even when I had to go through and deliver my children, because you don't really think of it. And that just goes to show the goodness of God. And I know, listen, we're not having church today, but then when you really think about the process, only the great I am could make something like that possible.
Mhm.
But thank you, ladies. If you want to, and the men, if you want to go ahead and drop a comment, you could be featured on today's spotlight. So always remember that. You can put something down in the chat section to encourage someone, just to comment on what we're talking about. We want to hear from you.
You
Give
know,
a
and
shout out to
Ebony,
your wife, your mama, your baby mama. They deserve it.
Ebony, I was sitting there when Deontay was talking, and there's a song that "You Are My Strength, Strength Like No Other." You know, it, that is so that just put everything in perspective. And the song is speaking about God, but it's also talking about the birth of civilization. And how we hold on to those things that's so precious. And mothers are just that. A lot of time people ask me the question, why are you the way you are? Where did you come from? And and talking about heroes and stuff of this nature. If you could look at someone beyond your mother or your father, but today is Mother's Day, and call someone else your hero, that's all. I never tell anyone but no hero. You know what I'm saying? You have to have a multitude, not only of accomplishment, but of respect and dignity. You know what I'm saying? Because my mother was a mother of dignity. And Ebony knows that. She was a mother of dignity. She didn't lower her standards for anyone. And what was right, what was wrong. And she stood there. And it was important. I became me because of my mother. Because of my mother. Because she was the nurturer. My father, he was that one that put his hands on me and say, hey, it's time for you to grow up. But that foundation, that came from that mothers. That's why I say the mothers, black woman is the mothers of the humanity. God is the mother of earth, but they're the mother of humanity is a black woman. Because a piece of them is in everyone. And I don't care how you look at it. You can't shake it. I don't care how hateful you are. When you look in the mirror, you need to know there's a black woman that's a part of you. Like
Amen.
no other. Believe me, from generations to generations. It's just, it brings so much joy, when you're talking about women, and just women in general. White, black, just women in general, just to endure some of the things that they have to go through, and I think, Ebony, you'll lead us into the next segment, but I just thank God for women. All I could say, I can't say enough about, Mother's Day is 365 days a year. And it
Yes.
should be that way. And it's 366 on a leap year, but God, every day, a mother is carrying the torch for their children every day. Whether
Yes.
it's drugs, whatever, they always talk about their children.
That's right. So really that allows us to go ahead, and we want to thank Miss Sophia. There's nothing like your mother. So if you do have your mother in your life, cherish that, because there'll never be another one like her. So this is a good opportunity really for our next segment, which is mental health in schools. Deontay is gonna talk with us about mental health in schools. And we're leading right back to, and Deontay, you can go ahead and talk about that, because mothers, once again, usually are the ones crying out for help for their children whenever they need help in terms of mental health and other things going on. Deontay?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, firstly, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so that's why I pulled out the green hat and the green handkerchief, because green is the color for mental health awareness. Um, the reason we want to talk about mental health in schools, as Mr. Neal and Ebony have alluded to, there are so many situations where these young people are being traumatized, um, and finding themselves anxious about things right there in the schoolhouse, and there's no one there to help, because frankly a lot of times there's not the training to recognize what is going on with the child, and that there's even an issue in the first place. And even if the issue is recognized, what should we do? So I want to talk a little bit about that, and I'm not going to hold everyone up too long. We'll probably do another segment where I'll do a long drawn out spiel, but
Deontay, can you, for all of our viewers out there that are not aware of the type of work that you're in, can you please just tell them real quick what's your background so that they'll know that you already have this expertise and training?
I'm a licensed therapist, a certified master life coach, a certified professional career coach, and several other certifications as well. Um, and I've been working with um, the youth in particular for right about 8 years now.
Perfect. Thank you for your service too.
So, if I may, I would like to talk to just the educators for just a moment, because many times you guys are the ones who are the first to notice when something is going on with those kids, because you all are right there with them. And I know you are invested in them and you love them. So, the first thing that we need to know are the warning signs that something is going on with that child, right? And when we talk about warning signs, we want to look for um, the child feeling sad or withdrawn. And when we say withdrawn, we mean not wanting to be around other kids, kind of going in the corner, not talking to anybody. And if this is going on for a period of more than 2 weeks, that is definitely something to be concerned about. Um, Definitely, if a child is trying to harm themselves or making plans to do so, or even talking about it in general, we definitely want to seek some professional help and tell administration in that situation. Suicide is real. I know a lot of times, especially in the Black community, we like to say that we don't do that. That's not the case. The numbers and the facts prove otherwise. Suicide happens to us as well. We also want to look for children that are experiencing maybe a sudden overwhelming fear of something that may be unreasonable. For example, if they keep looking at the door thinking that somebody is going to come through the door, but that's never happened before, that may be some reason for concern, because that's definitely showing that the child is anxious about something. There's something going on somewhere else that we need to be concerned about. We want to look for out of control behavior that's not normal for the child. And I don't like to use the word normal or abnormal, because every child is different. But if you've been around that child for a certain period of time, you know their temperament. So if there's a sudden change, keep an eye on that child. It's a reason for that. We also want to look at a change in eating habits, or throwing up for some reason, because there's a lot of adolescents in particular, mostly females, that will develop eating issues as well. So we want to keep an eye on that. Extreme difficulty concentrating, um, falling asleep in class, and that this and I don't mean falling asleep one time. If it happens every day and they're having difficulties concentrating, speak to them, ask them what's going on. Are they getting enough sleep? Everything of that nature that you can try to figure out what's going on there with that child, because a lot of times there can be something going on as far as stress that's not being identified with that child, or there could be some ADHD issues going on as well, that the child would be better off if these things are addressed. Um, Obviously, alcohol, drug abuse. If that's something that's suspected, definitely report that. Um, Mood swings, um, highs and lows. If a child is happy one time, crying the next time, definitely something for concern. And also, um, big changes in personality. Again, going back to the fact that I'm sure you guys know these children and how they act and their normal personality. So if there's a big change in that personality, keep an eye on that child. So this brings us to the big question. What do we do if we identify something? Well, first of all, for the administrators, we want to educate the staff, the educators, also the parent and the students about many of the symptoms and some of the things we look for to identify, first of all, when a problem is going on. We want to promote social and emotional competency, and we want to build resilience in these children so that when something is going on, they feel confident enough to ask for help and they don't feel that there's a stigma attached to it. We want to make sure that there's a safe environment right there in school, that the child isn't feeling like they're being picked on or bullied or anything like that. We also want to encourage the children to kind of help and keep an eye on each other, because there's nothing like a peer picking you up when you're down to help you out right there in that situation. And obviously, we want to help ensure that everyone has access to mental health if they need it. So definitely keep an eye on these children if there's something going on with them, and report these things to administration so that they can take the proper steps and get the children the help that they need. Because again, suicide is real. The rates are increasing exponentially, so especially in the Black community. The Black youth are committing suicide at the highest rates. That
Uh,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ebony.
Deontay, we have one of our viewers here, Miss Pringle Hadley. For
Mm-hmm.
one, she says that she has some experience with students as a substitute teacher, and that she's had some students come to her in confidence because they're afraid to speak to their parents. Several
Wow.
of them have come due to being hungry.
Oh my goodness.
That puts a great, first of all,
Wow.
I want to commend Miss Pringle Hadley for being that safe person that that child can go to. But I can also imagine that puts a great deal of stress on the teacher because they have to take that on in addition to trying to be an educator.
Yes. Wow. Firstly, again, like Ebony said, Miss Pringle, you're obviously a person that the child felt comfortable enough around to talk to. So kudos for that. But in that situation, we definitely have to alert administration so that they can go through the proper channels and make sure that that child is not being neglected. And I know that that's not something that we often want to do, but we definitely want to make sure that these children aren't in a situation that is not conducive to their proper upbringing and mental and physical health being taken care of. So
And you know what, uh, Deontay, I
mhm.
know Miss Pringle. We graduated pretty close, you know, in proximity there. I think she graduated a year after I did, and she's airline stewardess right now. And Dr. Pringle is her family, and I know how they
Mm.
nurture each other.
Yeah.
And she is exactly who she says she is, you know, because we grew up very close and stuff. And she knew my mother, and when she spoke of the hunger there, and a lot of times we overlook that, but when mothers pay attention, when mothers pay attention, they speak. We need to hear them. because they're saying something to us, even in the schools as leaders. We don't hear the mothers. We don't hear the voice of that mother speaking about their children and what they're who they're sending to the schools. My mother was the cafeteria supervisor at Chop E, and she knew children that was hungry, that was in hungry situation and stuff, and and she nurtured them, not just from the school, but after school. She prepared bags and take it to them or hand it out to them because things they could not do because of policy. Children were going home hungry from school. So her and Dr. Pringle knows they did so much work with that just in the school, feeding children after school. You know, it's just the things that we need to pay attention to that creates these situations because that might be the only meal that they get that day.
Yes.
And that is the challenge that we are facing. And I've seen some of the children that my mothers have helped nurture just from feeding them at the schools. And she almost got fired because they say, "Oh, you can't give them that much." You have guys, the man like, I mean, 6'5", 6'6", going to chop. He man 200 and 50, 60 some pounds up to 300 pounds. You're given a serving. That don't feed them, not when they're going to work out. And that could be their last meal when they go home and get until they get back to school. So it's so much in the segment that you're talking about, and what Sophia said there, because she knows, and it just so it really it brings tears to your eyes, man, when you start talking about it, because some of them were my friends, because I used to ride around my mother, and I used to put it in the mailbox, milk that they wanted to throw away that was still good, but because they didn't use it that day, they could not give it to the children.
Yeah.
So,
That happens more often than we want to believe. Just 2 days ago, I had a child report to me that the only time that they eat well is in school, just as you said.
yeah.
So, it's definitely a difficult thing to do to interject yourself in that situation, but it's something that we have to do to protect the welfare of that child.
And and I have to say one thing: Georgetown County School District have done an outstanding job during the pandemic with getting children their meal
Right.
because they had setups at the sites. They take 3 meals with them, even over the weekend. They had meals to go home with them. So kudos goes out to them. You know what I'm saying? Because that is huge. And we have to continue to to make sure we pay attention to our children because it's a lot of what we call ADHD and stuff. It's not ADHD. A lot of times the children are just hungry. When you get hungry, it becomes a mental crisis also. Now you can't function. You can't pay attention. You can't focus if you're hungry because all you're thinking about is feeding that hunger. You know what I'm saying? So we have to really pay attention to that. And the first thing we need to ask the child, did you eat today?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So true. And Deontay, do you have any other words about mental health in schools?
Well, to answer that question that you just put up from Miss Sophia, yeah, it's difficult if you feel like we're going to lose their trust, but at the same time, in my case, and I don't know about substitutes, but I'm what you call a mandated reporter. So it's difficult because it's a fine line between what is hunger and what is neglect. So we have to really do everything we have to do to identify everything that's going on with that child and take care of them right there on the spot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. We're going to definitely have another conversation where we can maybe take a whole show to just talk about mental health in general and mental health in schools, because there's a lot that we can talk about and dissect when it comes down to mental health in schools. Now, wrapping up our show for the last segment, we're just going to talk briefly about the abortion laws. With the NAACP, well, let's just talk about this nationally. We all know that the Roe versus Wade was turned over. last week, there has been a lot of outcry. Um, People pretty much well knew that it was coming along. Um, you have abortion rights activists.
Real
They
quick, Ebony. I don't want to cut you off, but just to correct one thing, it hadn't been overturned yet. There was a report that was leaked that there was an internal vote and that it likely will be overturned in the very near future.
Thank you for clarifying that, Deontay.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of upset folks. Abortion right activist plans protests outside the Supreme Court justice's home. I will tell you, this particular article spoke to me, yes, because of what it said, but it really spoke to me because of this first uh, poster that this lady has up here. Says guns have more rights than my vagina. And sadly, I feel that's true. You have so many of these other side supporters, all about gun rights, all about this, all about that, but women don't have control or a right to choose motherhood or not, depending on her circumstance. And what people are not understanding about the abortion laws is that it's more than just about abortion. Okay, what it happens is when you start talking about abortion, it's a huge umbrella that also talks means that it affects family planning.
Mhm.
If a woman starts hemorrhaging, they could even charge her with having a miscarriage, a normal miscarriage. And so it's not just about abortion, it's about birth control. It's about, you have instances where women are raped, things of that nature. Women should have a choice about their body and motherhood, point blank. Whether I or anybody else on this panel or the NAACP agree with it or not, if they have already made a decision that women have rights and control over their body, why take that right away? Women are already vulnerable, and they need to protest because the situation is ridiculous. Any words?
But Ebony, everybody needs to protest. Every man needs to protest because it is so hypocritical of what we are doing. And it's men that's leading the charge on this. It's men. We need to protest. And we need to vote those folks out that feels as though they have a right to tell somebody else what to do with their body. Women don't tell men what to do with their body.
Right. But
Man
you
is telling women what they need to do with their body. And you took the word out of my mouth when you said a woman could have a miscarriage, but God in mercy, just the mental health position that she's in during that time, thinking about she could be charged because because a governor or politician like the Santos and those folks that vote for this stuff, might think that they are having an abortion or trying to lose a child at a stage past 15 weeks and 20 weeks. Why should someone even be under that mental health trauma dealing with foolish politicians that has no right to decide on the rights of a woman? The bottom
well,
line.
Well, Mr. Neal, let me just say this. In this whole thing, it's only another sign of digression.
Digression.
And the problem with all of this is this. Yes, this whole thing is being led by men, things that don't even affect them. The
Yeah.
problem I have is we got Obamacare, the ACA, and all of them, healthcare insurance that's paying for Viagra now.
Yeah.
Okay, so taxpayers can help pay for Viagra to help a guy get an erection, but a woman, if they overturn this whole law, cannot have a right to say what even about birth control in her own body. It don't make any sense.
It's hypocritical.
This is what concerns me the most. When prohibition was the law,
Yeah.
people still got alcohol. Right now, marijuana is not legal in South Carolina. All of us know somebody who smoke weed.
Yeah.
So These women, if they get desperate, even though it's outlawed, they're going to find a way to do it. And if it's not directed by a healthcare professional, it's going to be dangerous. So let's think back to all of these horrible stories that we heard about the women back in the day that would stick hangers up themselves and end up bleeding to death and all of this stuff like this. Because certain situations, Ebony, I think you alluded to this, like when women are sexually assaulted and things of that nature, end up getting pregnant. They don't want to bear that child. So
No.
they're gonna get desperate and they're gonna do whatever they have to do. And I fear for the women in our community and in our society at large because man, if this can be taken away, what's next?
What's
but
next?
but check it out though. We created by doing this, by even attempting to do it rather. Look at what just happened. The leak, they said, well, it was bad, but it was good. Bottom line, because it gave women a chance to respond to what could happen. So it leaves no doubt in the mind of those Supreme Court justice that's about to overturn a 50-year law because of politics. Because of politics. And folks that's out there talking, and if they look within themselves and their own family, their abortion is happening. Because you could cover it up, don't mean it didn't happen. Because you have money, don't mean it didn't happen. Because you have the opportunity and could fly your daughters somewhere else, don't mean it didn't happen. It just leaves that crisis on those that can't afford it, that don't have the affordability, that's poor, disenfranchised. It all leads back to what affects people of color more than
Right.
anything. That's the bottom line. So we got to get real about what's going on in America. It's not just they're trying to overturn abortion. It's the regression that's happening.
And moreover,
in every area, for
it's
voter rights and
also
everything else. So abortion
it's
just
also
a key topic right now.
yeah, it's the talking point right now. But it also comes down to religion. Because
Right.
if you ask them why they're so against abortion, the first thing they'll say, well, God said this, that, and the third. Now, don't get me wrong. I respect everyone's religious beliefs. And I believe you should be able to practice whatever belief you want. However, I do not believe you should be pushing those beliefs, those thoughts, those practices on anyone else.
That part, because everybody don't believe in God, Deontay. Just because if I may be Christian, somebody else may be Hindu, they may be atheists, and these lawmakers are pushing this whole Christianity thing.
Exactly.
They need to stop with this.
Yep.
They
Church
need
and
to
state.
stop with it.
Yep.
And if Marilyn were on here, she'll hit it dead home. A lot of this has to do with they realize that the population has dropped.
Oh, definitely.
And but again, getting back to what Mr. Neal said, this does affect mostly the Black and poor women. And we really need to keep our eyes on this, stay vigilant. Just like Mr. Richa, thank you for Mr. Hutchinson for watching. We need to vote these folks out. We need to vote them out because at the end of the day, if a white girl got pregnant, they can fly these girls or drive them somewhere and get it done in a safe environment. Those who are poor cannot do that same thing.
Ebony, it is so true, because we have created a society where it's pretty much, and Richie hit it on the head there, Richie Hutchinson. He said, vote them out. Our challenge is voting them out. And the challenge is not voting them out. The challenge is that we need to vote to get them out. And that's where we are right now. And if that don't send a strong message there, so If a man loves a woman and someone takes their rights away and they're sitting back saying, this is all right, I don't know what kind of man that is, bottom line. Because I won't tell my wife, my daughters, or whatever woman it is, what to do with their body. The bottom line. I will not impose on that because that's not my body. That's not my body.
I agree.
It's important that we recognize what belongs to us. God made us separate. Believe me, he brought us together as husband and wife, but he didn't brought us together to a point that we don't have our own minds, our own bodies, and how we think and how we relate to him. Believe me, and you hit it right on the head. It's not about Christianity and religion and all this other stuff. It's about foolish politicians.
It's about control. It's about white supremacy and white men trying to dictate and control.
White supremacy and white men. You hit it on the head. And that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Systematic control of everything. That's why we have to be so careful. Because when you don't vote, you voted for the problem. The bottom line.
Yes, sir.
So I want to thank you all. Deon, I'm going to turn it back into the hands of Deontay, my co-host.
All right. So, Mr. Neal, I know there's a few things coming up in the community as far as events and things of that nature. Is there anything that the people need to know?
Yeah, it's two things that, in St. Paul, Plantersville on Saturday, starting at lineup is at 10 o'clock, and there's a parade, and there's a huge day of just coming out of COVID and stuff that we are doing in Plantersville here, just to help people to air out. They will have stuff for every age segment of the population, from children, bouncing castles to whatever, food, everything will be there. They have the vaccines will be there. MUSC will be here giving out the shots. If you need another booster shot, they'll be giving that out too, to whatever shots that you've gotten, whatever vaccine that you've gotten, you can get the booster to it, and they'll be here. They have validated that on as of yesterday. The steel union is coming back up again for us to go back into this appeals hearing to bring in new witnesses and make sure we understand what's going on with the steel mill in Georgetown. The steel mill is really a vehicle that moved majority Black people in Georgetown to middle class, that helped them, got their children through college and everything else. And you can't replace that with hotels and motels pumping in people with enslaved labor, what it boils down to, enslaved labor, and with maybe a maximum of $11 an hour, not even minimum wage when it comes down to it. It saddens me to think that we are sitting back today still talking about bringing in hotels that's going to have people making beds and giving up prime jobs with technology and everything else, where you sent your children to school. They could come out of high school making $20+ an hour, livable wages, and that can move on. Right now we're in a condition right now where we can't even afford affordable housing. You can't do it from a hotel, working in a hotel. You can't do it from working in a restaurant unless you own it. Everybody that makes money in hotels and restaurants and those businesses that makes the money is the chefs. And if there's a chef in the family of the hotel owner, that's who makes the money.
Yeah.
If there's a chef that they have to bring in, that's who make the money. But that's it. Waitresses, cleaning crews and all that, they have to go back and live with mama or whoever they're living with, but they won't be able to pay their rent, not with what they're making there sitting on the floor. That's why it's so critical that we understand what's really coming in front of us. A lot of times you hear in these meetings, these county council meetings and city council meetings, that they talk about, it brings in revenue. Revenue for who?
The owner.
Okay, the owner. Bottom line. The bottom line. You go to the accommodation tax meetings. You go to the budget meetings and see where the budget is going. That's where you see where you fit in that in the equation when it comes down to building your communities, parks and recs and stuff of this nature. We have to be so careful. We have to attend these meetings because it's critical. So this meeting is coming up on the first Tuesday in June for the steel mill. We need everybody to come out there and voice their concerns because it's already set up from the beginning. When you have a county councilman's wife, the chairman of the appeals committee for the city council, zoning appeals board for the city, when you have already made her decision before they even had the first meeting. Then you have the nephew of the mayor sitting there and say, "Oh, that's not an ethics violation." If that's not an ethics violation, I don't know what it is. What's an ethics violation? And already made comments. Facebook, wide open. The steel mill needs to go. But this is the chairman of the appeals board that's going to make that decision. So we need to call our elected officials, call all of them. And that's why it's so critical. It goes right back to voting again.
Yes, sir.
Voting. Don't fight the vote. You need to black the vote. The bottom line. And quit playing with it. In the city of Georgetown, they need to get people out and black the vote. We need to get people out and black the vote. That's what it's all about. Not fight it. Got to black the vote to win the city of Georgetown. And it's still there. The winnings are still there. Those people are so hatred in city council right now. I've never seen anything like it. And tell you that they're hateful on the decision that they made.
I think a lot of people might not vote for local elections because we don't realize just how important those elections are and how much these individuals control about our daily lives. Can you touch on that a little bit, Mr. Neal?
Yeah. Let me tell you how much they control. When you're looking at an electrical bill that's being put on the table to be raised 40%, and you have people in the city right now trying to figure out how they're going to pay the electrical bill that sits on the west end of Georgetown, not on the other end, on the west end of Georgetown. But the city electric wants to raise their bill by 40%. 40%. They're sitting in the cold already and in the heat. Can't run the heat in the winter and can't run the AC in the summer. What a trade-off.
Wow.
Weatherization and stuff of this nature. The rich get richer, the poor get poor. It becomes the have and the have-nots. Affordable housing don't even exist. Sheriff Carter Weaver brought it up to the county council the other day. They got to pay his deputy. He's just training deputies to go to Myrtle Beach and Charleston. All his budget is training deputies to go to Myrtle Beach and Charleston. The city also, city police department doing the same thing. Training deputies to go to Myrtle Beach and Charleston because they're not paying them anything here.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? But when you look at it, every department, they really need to go back and look at what they're doing with their money because the money is there. The money ain't the problem. Is where they're putting the money and how they're padding each other's pocket and family members. It's a family affair. You could call a meeting of these city and county council folks, and I guarantee you could have a family reunion right there, Deontay.
Oh, the nepotism is obvious. They don't even try to hide it.
It's so common and obvious.
Yeah.
It's common and obvious. School district also. Common and obvious. Nepotism. They want to say, well, they don't work directly for them. But look at the top, who's in charge. If the top is in charge, you work directly for them because you make that decision no matter what. The final decision is always the top. You can slide them any way you want to. Whoever they're working for works for the top. So how is it not nepotism? You see what I'm saying? The games that we play and sit back and watch happen, but we have to vote those folks out. The bottom line. Vote them out.
True.
And quit playing with them.
And if they are appointed, we have to vote out who put them in place.
Hello. Vote out who's making the appointment. Bottom line.
So again, we want to show love and respect to all the mothers on today, be it biological or spiritual mothers. Make sure you support the steel mill. Show up to the council meeting and let your voice be heard. Because that steel mill provides a living wage for so many people in our community.
And
And if it goes
Deontay,
away, where will we be?
another thing, we need to understand what union does
Mm-hmm.
for those that is less fortunate and disenfranchised. Unions brings equity and balance to the workforce. When you're sitting in the southern states and at will states and what they call it, fire at will, it just all that means is fire black people if they make some noise.
Mm-hmm.
If you raise your voice, we'll fire you. That's the threat they hold over you. The only thing covers us from time to time is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. That's the only thing that covers us. But it's all about maintaining, keeping those people's voice silent, telling them to shut up. And people need to quit sitting back talking about, well, I can't say nothing because, I work there. No, that's the reason you need to say something, because you work there. You need to come together and say something because you work there. It's sad. Everybody else could fight for an individual when they choose not to even fight for themselves.
Yeah.
Don't even follow the law and the rules that's in place on the jobs to fight for themselves. Some of them don't even look at the policies. We have people right now that we are dealing with, Deontay, that have never look at the policy handbook, the employee's handbook, don't even know what's in it, getting fired from jobs and wondering what to do.
Wow.
Don't even know there's a grievance time in place there. Call you months afterwards and say, I need help. But these are people in leadership positions that's telling you, I didn't know that. Okay?
Wow.
And the multiracial couples, the mixed couples, really catching more hell than anybody else out there right now. They're catching. We dealt with 3 cases this week, multiracial couples. And Deontay, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Being called niggers and everything else. Oh,
Yep.
niggers. Right
Just
now,
like
catching it. And the word just flowing out now is freely. Flowing out freely. And the leaders of those areas where it's reported at, they're turning their head to it. Even we are turning our heads to it. Playing like we don't know. We know. Our children are suffering and it's creating a mental health crisis. That's why you have more suicide rates in the Black community than any other community, because we have to take care of our children and stand strong with them. When they tell you something is going on. It might not be exactly what they say, but it's exactly how they understood it. You just need to dig into it enough to get the understanding of what's going on. Take the time to dig into it. And Deontay know exactly what I'm talking about. We've been in and out of the schools from not only just in Georgetown, other areas also.
Too.
Calling, help. And guess who's calling? Mothers are calling.
Yep. Help my child.
Help my child. Mothers are calling.
Yep.
So fathers need to start showing up. Mothers are calling. Sometimes I hear the father in the background. Hear him in the background.
We've been turning our head blindly for way too long. But let me tell you something. Winchester don't mind laying hands on somebody, and I ain't no preacher.
Jay, it's what we got to do, but we have to continue to fight, and we got to support our mothers. And this segment is supposed to be all about mothers. We have to support our mothers and support our fathers too. There's fathers out there, they're challenged too, but today is about Mother's Day. We have to support those mothers. And fathers, they didn't become mothers because you disappeared. They became mothers because you were there. You disappeared after the act. So it's time for us to show back up and take care of children. That's our responsibility. They shouldn't be calling us. Fathers should be calling us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, folks, we appreciate you all tuning in to the special Mother's Day broadcast of Spotlight, brought to you by Georgetown NAACP number 5520, for our president, Mr. Marvin Neal, our third vice, Ms. Ebony Hughes, I am Deontay Winchester. Thank you so much. We will see you all next week. Also, don't forget to support that event at St. Paul down there in Plantersville. Going to be a great community event. I will be out there personally signing people up for free mental health consultations. So please, please, please come out, show your support. As always, we love you all. Continue to love yourselves.
That function is Saturday the 14th, this coming week. And to all of you, happy Mother's Day.
What time is line up for the parade?
Lineup starts at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock line up for the parade. Thank you all. See you later.
God bless you. Thank you, Deontay.